straight from Iowa City.
Don't you just love? Don't you love those moments when I just pop onto the stream?
Well,
Just so you're aware, I've told you this many times. I am not doing that. When I enter from my phone, it enters me into the stream automatically, and I have no way to control it.
Well, I believe that your phone just knows that you have privilege here at the Voice.
Yeah, I guess so. Your job, at least for the next, well, however long you want to have me on here, your job is to keep me awake. Okay, because I still got about 2 hours of driving now. I do not expect you to stay on for 2 hours because my phone's like
oh, so you obviously did the post game show from the stadium or somewhere close.
Yes, I did the post game show from Coach Patterson's crib. So
very nice.
I grabbed a sourdough melt and got done.
You're making me hungry.
Yes, sourdough melt from Culver's, which you probably know nothing about Culver's.
I've heard of it.
Very good food. But anyways, I'm still hungry, but if I eat any more, it'll probably make me more tired. But anyways, well, I'm all for talking more football. I just got done with an entire day of it. So
well, be safe, be careful. Certainly keep your eyes on the road and do all those good things that you need to do. Is it a difficult drive?
No.
Okay. It's just straight shot.
Yes, pretty much. It's it's basically two major 4 lanes and you're home.
Now, I've never been to Iowa. I hope to get there someday. But I'm guessing from my trips to the College World Series that there's not a whole lot of hills that you're encountering or swerves or much of that.
Well, I'll tell you what, there's your first mistake for comparing Iowa to Nebraska, because even though Omaha is on the other side of the border, Iowa is actually very hilly, Mark.
Oh, okay.
That's a common misnomer. Nebraska's very flat. Iowa's very hilly. Wisconsin's very hilly. So no, it's this stretch of eastern Iowa heading into my old neck of the woods in the Marshall County area is actually very hilly.
Okay. That I stand corrected. So that's why I asked the question. All right. Well, speaking of hilly, Deacon Hill.
Oh yeah, that's what a beautiful pun.
Beautiful segue there.
Yeah.
Yes. So we will start with the much ballyhooed quarterback play there at Iowa. So start to evaluate for us what you saw on the field today.
Well, I guess first things first, the Iowa coordinators met with the media on Thursday. I was not a part of that, but did obviously watch all of that on YouTube. And one thing that Tim Lester pointed out that I thought was noteworthy, and I've repeated several times on the air since then, because I think it's kind of got to read between the lines about it, but he made the comment about fundamentals, and he used the example of Deacon Hill's drop back. And I don't exactly remember the context of why the statement was even made in the first place, but there was a question about, something specific that Deacon was working on, or that they were trying to work on. And Lester kind of deferred back to fundamentals and said, we'd love to work on this or that, but like when I first got here, just, he hasn't been here longer than a couple of months, and only a few weeks of practice. We had to just figure out what the right drop back technique was for Deacon. And Tim Lester's a former quarterback, and he made the point that there's a number of ways to skin a cat as it relates to dropping back, and certain guys are comfortable in different ways. And they had to figure out what Deacon Hill's best drop back looked like. And that sounds sort of kind of juvenile or dumb, but I think that just is a microcosm of some of the issues they've had with just basic fundamental quarterback play. And that's why this is not an overnight fix for Deacon Hill, for Marco Lainez, for any of the quarterbacks, any of the passing game. And you could, funnel that down through, I think, the rest of the offense. So I thought Deacon Hill had moments today where he was okay. It's kind of like last year when he played. He had moments last year where he made a nice throw here or there. He's got a big arm. Had a nice throw down the sideline to Caden Weegan, who I think is probably going to be a on the two deeps. If fall camp started tomorrow, he'd probably be on the pre-fall camp two deeps at receiver. And one nice throw down the sideline to him. Most of what we saw today was, I would say, within 20 yards distance. There wasn't a whole lot over the top for either guy, either quarterback. But Deacon Hill had a couple of just absolutely horrendous decisions. One where he threw two interceptions to linebackers, one of which was to Carson Shire, who's finally healthy. It was good to see Carson make a play, but I mean, there's just no offensive player anywhere in the vicinity. He threw it in like double or triple coverage for an interception. And then there was another one off of, I think, a deflection where Jackson Rexroth made a nice pick. But he's just erratic, and I would guess that Tim Lester, I mean, again, me having the faith I have in Tim Lester at this point, having not seen the finished product in the field, I've got faith in who he is as a coach, what I know about him as a person, and as a former quarterback, that I think that he's going to get everything he can out of Deacon Hill, but there's no way that he's done that in just a few weeks' time. So Deacon's a warm body right now. Cade's not anywhere close. Cade was out there running around with a knee brace on and, was not in playing 11 on 11, but he was out there at times and looked very ginger on that knee. Very, very unsure of himself, especially when trying to move side to side. So he's still got at least a month or two of recovery before he's cleared. Marco Linez, I thought, flashed, but we've heard that he struggled with his arm at times this spring and even into bowl prep last December. I guess I should say last fall, really all of the fall. He got here during the summer, and but he had some nice plays. He's really good on his feet. He runs like a running back. It's probably as athletic as we've seen a guy in that position since probably Brad Banks. That's not exaggerating. But they've just got a couple of guys who are kind of polar opposites of one another. One with a big arm that is for lack of a better word, Mark, an overweight statue. And then you have another guy who's not got a real big arm, not real accurate, but boy, he's electric on the ground. So, how do you find the even balance? I think the one thing that we can be pretty confident in, Mark, is even if those guys don't take big jumps, if they can get a guy like Cade healthy, or you can go to the portal and get another quarterback that you have confidence in, maybe, just maybe, Tim Lester will make Kirk Ferentz comfortable with playing multiple quarterbacks, and they'll be able to utilize the skill sets of a Cade McNamara and a Marco Linez. Marco Linez is too good of an athlete to not be on the field. He just is. I mean, then they won't have him. But I mean, until that happens, I don't think that's going to. I have no reason to. I know the Linez family. I don't not been given any indication that he's not happy. But again, it's the portal, so you never know what's going to happen with these kids. But until he leaves, I'd be doing everything I can to get him on the field, even if his arm's not where it needs to be.
So you mentioned Tim Lester, and even superseding the quarterback competition for some people would be the first look at the Iowa offense under Tim Lester, which, of course, it's going to be vanilla because they don't want to put too much out there, number one. Number two, just as you mentioned, going back to rudimentary quarterbacking fundamentals is where they are right now. And hopefully they made quite a bit of progress in 15 sessions in the spring. But did you get any indication that this offense is going to look different? I expect it. I think we both expect it to look different. Tim Lester's accomplished in the position, but did you get any glimpses of that today?
I thought the running game was a little bit more fluid. There were less breakdowns up front, whether you attribute that specifically to Lester's new system. I do think there's a lot of pre-snap motion, a lot more pre-snap motion than we ever saw with Brian Ferentz or Ken O'Keefe. So that's going to keep the defense on their heels. We had an opportunity. I watched the game from the press box simply because it was freezing cold out. It's amazing. We had 80 degrees for a couple of days last weekend, and it was like in the 30s and gusting winds today. It was just miserable for a football for something like this. So I watched the game from the press box, and then after the media was able to get some field access, we were able to talk to several players. Kyler Fisher was one I talked to. Jamari Harris, both those guys were out with injuries, but they were, they're precautionary, so the media made them available, or the university made them available to the media. And I know one thing that was said regarding the offense by I think it was either Jamari or it might have been a different player. I'm trying to think of the third guy we talked to. But anyway, somebody made the comment that first few practices with this new system, and keep in mind the offensive players were new to the system as well, but the defense did catch the offense did catch the defense off guard quite a bit, according to these defensive players, because they were just things that they weren't used to seeing, and just a lot more going on. I think from a linebacker's perspective, there's going to be some challenges, test of communication. Um, we haven't talked about this yet, Mark, but the new helmet communication thing that's gonna it's gonna be an interesting storyline, too, with the new offense. So they were able to test that out a little bit, but I think again a lot of it's going to be the motion. You're not going to see a ton of. I mean, if Deacon Hill's playing, even if Gabe McNamara is playing, I don't think you're going to see a ton of quarterback design runs. But I think the point is you're going to keep that defense on its heels. Hopefully, not able to tee off as much as we've seen, even in maybe what we typically consider to be obvious passing situations. One thing Lester did say Thursday is, just like with every offense, stay ahead of the chains, and it makes things a lot easier. But his goal is to take shots down the field. So even though we didn't see a ton of shots down the field, you're going to see more attacking. And I think with Tim Lester and his background as a play caller and as a quarterback, that's another reason why I just have a lot of confidence in the notion that they're going to utilize who they have personnel wise, and that he'll get the most out of them. Whether that means play 2 quarterbacks, 3 quarterbacks. I think it was mentioned the other day, was it Lester or it might have been Kirk Ferentz? Someone brought up how I think it was LaShawn Williams looked pretty good. Maybe it was Terrell Washington. I think Terrell Washington, who switched over to receiver recently, that he's looked pretty good throwing the football in a couple of instances. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to run him as a wildcat, but I just think that having a guy who's offensively geared, so to speak, which is obviously what you want with a coordinator and play caller, they're going to have more success. There's a reason why they were 130th in the country in total offense, because they didn't recruit well, they didn't develop well, they didn't play call well, they didn't evaluate talent well, they didn't game plan well. You don't become that bad, Mark, unless you're bad on a lot of fronts. So they will improve. Now it's just a question of how much, and some of that's going to come down to health of guys like McNamara, what they can do in the portal here in the next couple of weeks, and of course how some of these younger guys develop.
So, Corey, this is not a situation where score is kept or teams are divided or anything like that, but did it just appear, based on what we know of this, the makeup of the team, the offense versus the defense, there's no comparison. Again, it's a complete aberration in college football. Then you put that together with everything that you've just outlined of them breaking in a new offense and the quarterback play not being extraordinary today. Did the defense did they give up anything?
Well, let me say this first. I've been watching Iowa football open spring practices and kids' day practices for the majority of my life, and there's never been, that I can remember, ever been an open practice where the offense looked even competent. Now, part of that is because the offense, more often than not, has not been competent. But I'm just saying, in these practices, sure, it's just what it is every year. So with that being said, trying to kind of again read between the lines and understand history. Yeah, I mean, Iowa scored a couple of touchdowns in 11 on 11. Marco Linez, again, right as of right now, the way that Iowa operates things, and I'm guessing this is the way a lot of schools do things, they're not allowing their quarterbacks to get hit. So, there's some plays that could have easily been sacks in real time that, were not sacks because guys held up. But there were I think 2 touchdowns, one for each guy. I know Marco Linez had a rushing touchdown because I know that because I remember it was followed by a blocked PAT off a free edge rusher. Um, so yeah, I mean there was some success there. I think you're going to see Terrell. I mentioned Washington. I think you're going to see him play a lot of receiver because they're pretty thin right there. Mark, Jacob Bostic entered the portal a few days ago. He's already got offers from. I saw he pulled in another offer from Pitt. He's got an offer from Iowa State, Vandy. He's got some Power 5 offers, which is surprising for a guy who's never really set foot in the field. But that just limits Iowa's depth again. I know Don Patterson. You'll like this, Mark. Don Patterson made the comment to me privately and said it on the air. He was impressed with Caleb Brown today. Caleb came in last year, a lot of expectations. Really didn't work into the fold until halfway through the season, and even then, he struggled with some drops. You knew he was electric after the catch, but wasn't always consistent. I don't think off the line. He looked pretty good today. I mean, I'm no expert in route running, and obviously, you're looking at a small sample size, but he didn't have any drops. Marco Linez's best play was a 20-yard throw to the sideline to Caleb Brown. If they could just get one guy out wide to step up and be like a go-to guy, boy, this offense goes from being crap to being at least, I think, adequate because you're going to get really good production out of tight ends, and they've got a strong running back room. But it's amazing how bad this offense has been for so long, and yet I don't know that I don't know of a year necessarily where there have been 2 positions that are so obviously the weaknesses of the team. Like wide receiver and quarterback, without a doubt. They're strong at tight end. They're strong at running back. I don't know how strong they are on the offensive line, but they're really experienced. They should be able to piecemeal a offensive line together. But boy, they got to figure out quarterback and receiver. And I'd say those are 2 pretty important positions.
It's a little bit easier to evaluate players during a spring game if you know what the approach is, meaning sometimes they'll put the first team quarterback behind a second team offensive line, or the first team defense is playing the second team offense, or whatever the dynamics are. So was there anything that you know of that in terms of personnel deployment that may skew your thinking about how a particular unit played?
Yeah, I mean, I did notice that Caleb Brown, they're not only did Bostic leave this past week, but I know Alex Moda was out with an injury. Seth Anderson missed basically all of spring with an injury. That's not good news because he was, he's considered to be one of their 2 or 3 best receivers, and he missed all of last spring after transferring here. So this is basically a second straight string where he's not played. So I thought it was kind of interesting that we saw Caleb Brown run a little bit more with the 2s than I would have expected. So maybe that's I'm not a guy that, I know there are some people in the media that love to track, who's running with the 1s, how many snaps with the 1s, how many snaps with the 2s. I'm not that guy, but I did notice that Brown was out there a lot with Linez, and Linez is basically getting all the snaps with the 2s and the 3s. And that's kind of been the talk this week, with social media, people frustrated by the fact that Tim Lester made the comment Thursday that Deacon Hill was getting basically almost all the snaps with the 1s. Well, normally I would be critical of that, Mark, but because of their unique quarterback situation, only having 2 scholarship guys, Tim's reasoning on it was, and I think it makes sense to an extent, Marco was not at a place where he was up to speed with signals and certainly the new offense. Not that Deacon was an expert on it, but Deacon had game experience. They wanted to give Marco as many snaps as they could, so they're giving him all of the snaps versus the twos and the threes. So they give Deacon the ones, and then give Marco more snaps against lesser competition. I think for now that makes sense. And so maybe that's part of the reason why they make guys like Caleb Brown in there a little bit to give Marco something to work with. And if that's the case, that's fabulous. I don't think nobody really got too specific with Kirk or Tim on that, but we didn't get to talk to Tim today, but we did get to talk to Kirk briefly after. And yeah, I mean, I guess you probably should know a couple other of these. You're talking about personnel groups. I mentioned a couple of the defensive players that were out: Jamari, Kyler Fisher. But Iowa's still down Logan Jones. Their center, Logan Jones, has been out, I think, most of spring. Jennings Dunker, starting right tackle, is still out. I think it's his is soft tissue, it sounds like. Seth Anderson, as I mentioned, he is out. And let's see here. They've got a tight end out. Addison Estringa's out as well with an injury, soft tissue. So, that affects things a little bit. But younger guys got maybe some extended ride that wouldn't normally. And they're pretty strong at those other positions, not named quarterback and receiver.
Corey Branda from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Check out Corey's full breakdown with Don Patterson. Coach Don Patterson and Corey got together after the spring game. That's, of course, at Corey's channel from the Hawkeye of the Storm. So that's a must-see over there. So you'll get even more analysis from Corey and Coach Don. And then, of course, join Corey and myself Tuesdays, 5:30 Eastern, 4:30 Central, Hawkeyes Live. It's on the Iowa channel. It's a good time with Corey and myself breaking down Iowa football. All right, Corey. Well, thanks for checking in. And how close are you now?
Only about an hour and a half. Let me say this before I get off the air.
Sure.
Where's the Cade Borid video?
The who?
The Cade Borid video.
Well,
you have no idea what I'm talking about.
Well, as soon as you say Cade, I'm thinking Cade McNamara.
This is a different Cade.
Cade,
so,
but then
Cade must be a popular name now because you got Cade McNamara, you got offensive lineman Cade Piper, and they got a commitment today from a transfer, Mark. He was actually at the game. Cade Borid, who is an FCS. He was he was let me get this right because I don't have it in front of me. He was first team FCS freshman All-American at North Dakota last year.
Spell his last name.
Borud.
UD. Okay.
I have not looked at any of his tape yet. All I know is he was a freshman All-American last year in the FCS, and he was at Iowa today, had Iowa gear on, and then we got a commitment out of him within a few hours. So I don't know what that means. Is he going to be on scholarship right away? Does he come in as a walk-on to start? I don't have the answer to that. All I know is Logan Jones has been out with an injury. Michael Myslinski is one of their centers who's been out, and that guy's been dealing with injuries for the last 2 years, it feels like. So maybe they're just trying to garnish some depth there. But boy, you like the sound of. I mean, I know North Dakota is not known to be a power, but FCS All-American, freshman All-American, that's a pretty cool honor. So maybe he'll come in there and end up playing some.
Well, you know what this sounds like to me, Corey. It sounds like I've got an hour and a half to be the fill-in for the go-to source for everyone concerning Iowa football. I've got only an hour and a half window to fill that void and post a video on Mr. Borid.
Yeah, are you going to post a video on Borid?
Well, considering I just discovered who he is about 30 seconds ago, and I've been on the air now for 3 hours and 9 minutes, I don't know that my motivation is that high, especially considering you will produce a video that's 150 times better than mine.
Here's what I think you should do. And I think you should just do this to test the waters, and I think you should post it to the Iowa channel only. But do a breaking news video. Cade Board commits to Iowa. And you don't have to know that much, but I'm curious because I'm not going to be able to get home in time to do a breaking news video. You could do a breaking news video right now, and we'll see what happens.
And what am I going to say about him? He's 6'2", 305. He's a freshman All-America at the FCS level. He's from Des Moines. He has no ranking coming out of high school. He's got a transfer ranking of number 50 among interior offensive linemen and 653 overall, according to 247 Sports.
Hey,
And that's the end of my. Oh, no. We do have a breakdown from Alan True, the national recruiting analyst. I can just read that.
yeah.
Okay.
See? See, I didn't even know he's from Des Moines. That's how little I know about this kid. And I haven't been able to even look into this. I didn't know he's from Des Moines.
Okay.
It makes sense. It makes sense that he would be so eager to be at Iowa. So maybe he will walk on. Maybe they won't. That's the other thing. Iowa's they're 4 above the limit still. They got to get rid of some guys. At one time I thought, it's not right to start speculating about who may leave. And now everybody's leaving all the time, Mark. So who cares? I'm happy with talking about it. So maybe we can do a video on that, like top 5 guys that should enter the transfer portal. Because I got that list. I've been brainstorming that list for a while now.
Okay. Eric has been asking me so much here. She's not here tonight, but throwing me, which I'm very appreciative, super chats basically with the same question over the last few days. Who should Iowa get as a quarterback, Mark? And I said, Erica, let me scan the nation. I will find 5 quarterbacks for Iowa.
Well, I can tell you this right now. I know we both talked about the rumor about Lincoln Kienholz, and I told you when we talked about it initially that I have no idea where those rumors came from. I told you that I was told by somebody that's connected to the Kienholz family that he was going to be keeping his options open this spring. That was before the end of Ohio State spring practice. He has not entered the portal. And I know you had an Ohio State guy who was adamant that there's no connection with Iowa. And I talked to somebody with the Iowa media today that said the same thing, that they'd been told there's no connection there. So who knows? Maybe Kienholz will stay put. And Devin Brown hasn't entered. Are you surprised that one of those guys hasn't entered already, Mark?
I will be surprised if no one enters. Sometimes this takes, some vetting out. Maybe they're having conversations, and they certainly have time to think it over a little bit. But yes, if we hit the end of the portal period and there's still 5 quarterbacks at Ohio State of that caliber, yes, I will be surprised.